Well, I'm back again. Uh, so I was watching this interview with Green Party presidential candidate Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West. He was being interviewed by Jimmy Dore, and excuse me, and the topic of the COVID mandates came up, and it was like Jimmy read the Black Caucus of the Green Party's statement about the mandates, which I wish I had it pulled up in front of me. It was really poignant and made lots of great points as to why the Green Party is against such mandates and, forced vaccinations and supporting these giant multinational corporations, the censorship and all that. But the Green Party themselves were, for the mandates, for the jabs, and they wanted the vaccine passports and everything. I mean, they were full COVIDians, I will call it. And so Cornel West kind of agreed with Jimmy that he would take more of a stance like the Black Caucus as opposed to the Green Party overall stance, but he didn't really say it like that. But that's what he meant. And then he said something like, but Jimmy, I don't understand why you think this is the most important topic of our time. With all the other things going on, you got your wars, he had a bullet list of big issued things that are like, yeah, those are pretty big issues, but the point that was missed, I think, was, you know, how huge and how much impact this had. Like, even he mentioned the Palestinians and whatever other war stuff that you can mention there. I mean, no matter if you could look at the worst wars that we've had, like what about the one in Iraq where we killed probably millions of people in the time that we were over there doing things since the first Iraq war. So there, if you look at what COVID was, and you look at what they're saying about it and what they say the numbers are, it was far worse than any war, far worse than most wars that we've seen since World War II. All of them put together don't have the death count that the virus alone. They claim the virus has killed 6 million people worldwide, I think is the number. I don't know. I don't believe their numbers. I don't look at their numbers seriously, so I think they're saying 6 million. So if you're saying that the virus killed 6 million people, you also have to remember that the virus was made by Fauci and his group of ghouls that experiment with gain of function and all this. And it's the leading theory. I'm pretty sure 100% that this came from a lab, probably the Wuhan lab, seeing how that's where the big outbreak happened. And the reason it was the Wuhan lab is because of the military games that was going on at the time. And then they conveniently had this wet market nearby that they could blame it on. But essentially, they made this virus that killed 6 million people. How come no one's pissed off at? How come Fauci ain't going to jail? How come this is a crime against humanity? Them playing around with the virus in the lab. All of a sudden, the virus gets out of the lab somehow, and then 6 million people die. But nobody's going to get held accountable for it. Nobody even got fired over it. The lab didn't get shut down. The work that's being done in these kind of labs didn't get shut down. In fact, we come to find out that there's labs like this all over the world. The Ukraine story, where we have all these labs in the Ukraine, and yes, they're bioweapons labs. They're not like fun time science labs to try to discover new cures for cancer and stuff. And isn't it amazing how they have billions and billions of dollars to throw at this virus and vaccine stuff, gain of function and all this, but they somehow can't fund decent research to do anything that'll help anybody. So yeah, I think just based on those numbers that they admit to, or that they say is what it is, that you could say that it is the biggest issue that we've ever seen, because you have a runaway corrupt government that's at the behest of big pharma, making vaccines and then making viruses to go with the vaccine. And let's not get my video scrubbed off of YouTube, because I'm gonna say, I'm YouTube forces us to say that the vaccine is safe and effective, and that that it's, I guess that's what it is. That's what they're telling us we have to say. The vaccine's great. However, we all know the real story with these things that are not they're not even what they say they are. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Maybe someday I'll just make these videos on Rumble only and just talk more straight about it. So, what was what about this wasn't a big deal? Now, Jimmy was kind of frustrated at Cornell, and he kind of got a little bit ill-tempered and threw a statistic at Cornell West that I think Cornell West just kind of ignored. But the lockdowns alone shut down permanently 41% of all black-owned businesses. That's insane. How can you act like that's not a big deal? And you're running, maybe Cornell West didn't say it wasn't a big deal. He said it wasn't the most important issue. Now, I'm not saying the lockdowns themselves was the most important issue, or the death toll from a virus that the government made. Those things are big, but on their own, I guess you could say not the biggest thing ever happened. But then you add to it that the lockdowns persist. Like at first they said, oh, it was going to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then it became 2 months, and then it became 2 years. These lockdowns did nothing but destroy businesses, destroy families. It didn't slow down. And if it did, if you could say that that's why COVID slowed down, then you can blame it for making COVID last this long. Usually a virus like this is in and out in less than 2 years. So those issues, and then the vaccine, when the vaccine was pushed as the only thing that you could do about COVID, like you can't do this horse paste over here or this fish tank cleaner over there. They demonized any kind of doctors, and that push those early treatments. In fact, we found out now that it was all done from the very beginning. Like they censored all these doctors that wrote the Great Barrington Declaration. They directly censored Dr. Robert Malone and Peter McCullough because they were pushing early treatment and questioning the vaccine early, and they got censored. And this is all like I'm saying is you get to the point where this is the biggest thing that's ever happened in our lifetimes. It's big. I wasn't around for Vietnam, but this is way bigger than that. This is way bigger than 9/11. This is way bigger than the wars that were the illegal wars we did after 9/11. More people died. More people are still getting tyrannized, and more people sick. Now the CDC comes out with a thing saying that if you got the vaccine, these new variants are just going to walk right over it. So they're still pushing it though. Now that's the CDC that just said that, but they're still pushing it. How does that make any sense? It's almost on the same day the CDC said that, Joe Biden was out there saying, yeah, everybody's got to get the vaccine. And the vaccine companies are shipping out those new boosters. They're not slowing down on making them. There was never any science for any of this at the very beginning. In fact, that's anti-science when they shut down the Great Barrington Declaration, which said that we should treat COVID like any other flu and isolate and protect the vulnerable and let the people that could handle getting sick for a couple days, let them go about their business, and then the virus will spread faster, natural immunity will kick in, and then eventually herd immunity would be realized. But that's what science told us about every virus. And now all of a sudden it somehow changes for this one. I don't know. There was no science for masks. There was only computer models. Now we've had a group that studies scientific studies and reviews them. Come to find out, yeah, no study has ever, in the history of studies of masks, which go back many decades, that they have ever found them to be useful to stop the spread of a virus, especially an airborne aerosol virus. So there was no science on lockdowns. In fact, the science on lockdowns in 2019 were basically saying that they were detrimental, they do more harm than good. The WHO had 2 people that actually said we're not going to do lockdowns right when the pandemic started, said this lockdowns are not a good idea. And they still did them anyway. And then they yelled at anybody that did any kind of research, which means reading about stuff and finding out information and data and facts and trying to figure out what's actually going on. They demonized everybody that was doing that, saying they told you to trust the science. Now the science is coming out telling you that masks don't work, lockdowns were killing people more than the virus, and that the jab, what the CDC just said about it, and much more. I mean, and it's basically the confirmation of all the things that people that did their own research for the last couple of years. It's confirming everything we've been telling people, even though the people that were telling us to trust the science don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it. They want to pretend like it never happened. And they don't seem to want to learn any lessons because they're still going to do whatever, thing that the TV or the government tells them to do next time something happens. And this tyranny around the COVID stuff includes the censorship of the protesters and the beating down of the protesters and the total disregard for the discourse that the protesters were pushing, and demonizing them, calling them racist, calling them Nazis and stuff. It's like, oh, come on. And so then you had the truckers in Canada who were defunded. They had some kind of, GoFundMe type thing going on. They had fundraising. They had PayPal accounts. They had they even tried to lock or confiscate crypto wallets. I mean, literally, the Canadian government debanked people that were protesting masks and lockdowns. And these people were the most vaccinated people. They were the truckers. They have to get vaccinated to go across the border. So it didn't make any sense to call them anti-vaxxers when really they just didn't want the mandates. And that's another thing they did, is they made you sound like an anti-vaxxer if you were against a mask mandate. Or, anti-vaxxer just became the new slur to call everybody that, didn't do the thing. And that kind of tyranny is still in play, even though a lot of people don't really take it seriously, because the people that are deploying those tactics, they're not very serious people, and they don't have any talking points. If you try to have a conversation with them about any of these issues, they will get they'll last about 1 reply, maybe 2, and then they're done. They don't have any facts, they don't have any data, they don't have any science to back them up. Now we're seeing all these excess deaths, and we know it's from the thing, but we can't say that either. Our video might get taken down, but it sucks because people were getting censored for talking about their relatives, getting the thing and then experiencing those things that Pfizer didn't want you to see for 75 years, adverse reactions or whatever you want to call it. They were getting censored for just talking about their loved ones experiencing ill effects from the thing. Now this All this tyranny is still there. Like the thing where they locked your bank accounts, they just did that again. And you have GoFundMe just did that to Gray Zone. Great reporting over there on Gray Zone on YouTube. Check them out. They cover war mostly, and they are about the best at it. So they were doing a fundraiser to try to pay some of their intrepid reporters that do such good work, and GoFundMe pulled the plug on it after $90,000 was raised. So it's absolutely unbelievable that these tyrannical, I don't know what you want to call them, regiments were installed for this thing. And what we've always seen with this kind of stuff is that you can't get rid of it. Once they put some tyrannical thing in place, it takes many decades to get rid of it. Just look at the prohibition of marijuana is a good example. It took over 80 years to erase that absolute insanity, and it's still going on. And in the mindset of many people, weed is still a bad thing and you should still get in trouble for doing it. But that's what's going on. And they snap their fingers and say that they're going to do another thing. There's going to be too many people that go along with it to really do anything meaningful to stop it, outside of just personally protesting it and not complying yourself. I'm just kind of baffled that people don't think this is that big of a deal, or that they want to just brush it off like they weren't being authoritarian little dicks during that whole thing. But it's whatever. It is the biggest thing that's happened to the planet. This wasn't just something that happened to Americans or that we did to somebody else. This was something that the tyrannical people upstairs did to the whole planet. And they'll do it again. And the mechanisms and the regiments that they installed for it are there for whatever. And when you're talking about this debanking thing, you're going to step that up, and everybody's going to get debanked. And everybody's going to get forced into CBDCs, and then with that tool, they'll be able to make anybody comply with anything they want. So, yes, it is the biggest deal. It is the biggest issue. And anybody that acts like it ain't isn't serious at all about running for any office. And that's all we got on that. Let me know what you think about this. I would like to know what a bigger issue would be. I mean, obviously the war is a big issue, because that's looking like World War III is real soon, coming soon to a theater near Europe. But you never know what they got in store for us. Maybe they want to see some World War III action where we have some of the battles on our lands. Maybe they want another civil war. I don't know. Whatever they do, they don't want a revolution. They don't want people talking to each other about this stuff. They don't want people waking up to what they're doing. They want everybody to turn on their CNNs and their Foxes and their MSNBCs and drone away into the night. All right. That's all I got. Peace. Go Feral.